And if at the point at which you lose free speech, it doesn't come back.
I think the issue some people have is that a lot of people were brought back. I mean, some people were brought back who were previously banned for spreading things like QAnon conspiracies. You have people like Andrew Tate who were brought back, who were previously banned for things like hate speech.
Elon is about to set this man on fire. Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, where we like to call out the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants, shine the light of awareness on woke absurdities, and highlight the amazing work of other freedom fighters. Now, this BBC interviewer, I'm sure you've seen clips, but we gotta watch it together. So please forgive me for being at the table just now, but we gotta watch this together. The mainstream media is absolutely an extension of the tyrants. Their propaganda, their narratives of free speech is bad because it promotes hate speech, and speech is the same thing as violence, even though it's radically different. So we've got to save our democracy by ending free speech, therefore Elon bad. That's very tyrannical. And of course, Elon, I do have my reservations about one man controlling all the things Elon controls. I don't really love that lack of diversity, but what I will say at a micro level, what he's done with Twitter, it has absolutely been empowerment for preserving free speech and whatever threads of democracy are left. So, as you know, Elon absolutely is about to go into torch mode on this reporter who has his talking propaganda points, but he's not rooted in principle, he's not rooted in critical thinking, nor is he rooted in reality, as he can't give Elon any examples of what he is telling Elon happens. Word to the wise. If you ever get into a debate with Elon Musk, not only are you dealing with the world's richest man, more significant to the situation, you're probably dealing with one of the smartest people in the world. The man is literally a rocket scientist. So come prepared. This BBC reporter wasn't prepared, and it's to our delight that we get to watch the aftermath of it. Let's take a look at where we left off.
Do you think you prioritize freedom of speech over misinformation and hate speech?
Well, you know, who's to say that something is misinformation?
Fauci, whatever Fauci says, and the CDC and the government that's trying to censor us, I think that's who gets to say it's misinformation. I mean, they're wrong almost all the time, but I guess their claims of misinformation are in fact they themselves misinformation, which means they're pretty good at misinformation. So Elon, our government, gets to say what misinformation is.
Who's the arbiter of that? Is it the BBC?
You're literally asking me?
Yes.
Well, no, you are the arbiter on Twitter, because you own Twitter.
Yes, I'm saying who is to say that one person's misinformation is another person's information?
That's called a logical question. It's a great question.
In which you said that there is, this is misinformation. Like, who is going to decide that?
You accept that misinformation can be dangerous, that it can cause real-world harms, that it can potentially cause...
Yes, and the point I'm trying to make is that the BBC itself has, at times, published things that are false.
Woo! Don't want to be this reporter, because, like, that's just hard to argue with, but I'll try.
Do you agree that that has occurred?
I love how Elon holds his feet to the fire. Long, awkward silence, then he forces his feet to the fire. Do you agree that that has occurred? Because it objectively has.
I'm quite sure the BBC have said things before that turn out to not be true.
Right.
In its, whatever it is, 100-year history, I'm quite sure.
Yes. Even if you aspire to be accurate, there are times when you will not be.
We've spoken to people very recently who were involved in moderation, and they just say,
Side note, I don't mean to fat shame Elon, but I'm surprised how large he is. If you look at his midsection, again, just an observation, it's like, great. It's Elon positivity.
There's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company. Is that something
We're about to get good, ladies and gentlemen.
What are you talking about? I mean, you use Twitter.
Right.
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
but just a personal anecdote, like what do you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content, yeah, personally. But I'm not going to talk to the rest of, for the rest.
What you're seeing is him currently digging a hole, and in a moment, you'll see himself thrown in that hole.
Twitter.
You see more hate speech personally?
I would say I would see more hateful content in that.
Content you don't like or hateful? What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Again, this is what an intelligent person asks. Elon Musk is objectively intelligent. So this guy made a claim, hate speech on Twitter. Now he's just holding his feet to the fire. What is the hate speech? What have you seen? Great questions.
Yeah, I mean, just content that will...
By the way, when you're talking to one of the smartest people in the world, a good way to not start answering the question is to say, yeah, It's like, no, he asked you because he wants to know what you know. Don't do these implications like, Oh, great answer. Cool. That clarifies it. That satisfies my highly intellectual mind with this intellectual discourse.
Solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No,
is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm
just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content, and I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed.
Now he's trying to get out of the hole, but the dirt's just falling and he's digging the hole deeper.
Whether it's got less or more, I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
don't. You
can't
name a single example.
I'll tell you why, because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore because I just don't particularly like it.
But you said
actually, a lot of people are quite.
The hole's gonna get deeper.
I only look at
hang on a
my
second.
following.
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and
Well, then how did you see the hateful content?
This is something like a not very intelligent person would ask. Like this is even like, dude, this is like Einstein level questions. You probably got an Einstein level mind in Elon. But these questions he's asking, they're just common sense. Like I could conjure up these questions and my IQ's, I don't know, probably somewhere between 11 and 21.
Content.
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen your hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying...
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Woo! I say, sir, then you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet.
By the way, that was so polite. Then I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about. Well, it's so polite.
And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's a false.
No, what I claimed...
You just lied.
What? No.
Again, Elon's problem is he's using logic. This Yahoo from the BBC uses propaganda. One guy pursues truth, the other guy pursues narrative. And you see who comes out more intelligent when those two forces of nature collide.
No, what I claim was there are many organizations that say that kind of information is on the rise.
Now he's just saying that what he said is what other organizations say. Again, this is what it looks like when someone has dug themselves a hole, been thrown into their own hole, and then they're trying to claw their way out, but is just making the hole deeper. It is masterful to watch.
Now, whether it has on my feed or not, I mean, right, and
literally
you can look at something
one.
like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK. They will say that. So
look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example. You can't name one.
Right, and as I already said, I don't use that feed. But
then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
that's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know that it's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time. COVID misinformation. You changed the COVID misinformation.
Has BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
Oh man, I love this. I wish this was 9 hours long.
The BBC does not set the rules on Twitter, so I'm asking you.
No, I'm talking about the BBC's misinformation about COVID.
So good.
I'm literally asking you about, you changed the labels, the COVID misinformation labels. There used to be a policy, it then disappeared. Why do that?
Well, COVID is no longer an issue.
Says it so well. By the way, little insider information. One of the things that Elon, it just seems to be natural about him, which increases the discomfort of this Yahoo he's talking about. Elon is so comfortable with socially awkward pauses. I was listening to an interview that a friend of mine named Chris Williamson did. His podcast is called The Modern Wisdom. And he was talking to an English psychologist or behavioral psychologist, somebody like that. And she was talking about how, like in social interactions, interviews being one of them, any length of time that's paused it feels so awkward. And I think it was like less than a second length of time of a pause is considered highly awkward. But then she's analyzed interviews like Elon's done with Joe Rogan, and she'll find he routinely takes 30-second pauses. So what he's doing in this interview, it's not, I don't think it's any kind of an act or a strategy on Elon's part. It's part of his natural demeanor where he's so stoic. He doesn't care about like, oh, you might be uncomfortable if I don't if I don't say something immediately. But instead, what I see Elon doing is he's stewing on the logical thread. Oh, you said there's hate speech, but you can't come up with a single example of that? Okay. Well, then I say, sir, you are a liar. So it was fun fact.
Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations?
Dude, it's so wonderful. Because this BBC propagandist, he's trying to make Elon accountable for everything on Twitter, like trying to make him accountable for people's First Amendment right to say whatever the hell they want. And then Elon's kind of like, nope, I'm actually going to make you accountable on the BBC's behalf. And the guy's like, dude, that ain't comfortable because we don't do accountability at the mainstream media.
And not reporting on that at all?
Notice the awkward pause.
And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
This is not an interview about the BBC.
Oh, you thought it wasn't?
I see now why you've done Twitter Spaces. I am not a representative of the BBC's editorial policy. I want to make that clear. Let's talk about something else. You want to talk about the BBC? All right, let's talk about something else.
You weren't expecting that.
You weren't expecting that. That guy he probably went out and got hammered after that interview. He's like, dude, I am humiliated. But thank you for watching this with me. For me, this is the heart of all this. Why do I love this? Why do I think this video is brilliant? Why do I think it's a good example for everybody to see? Because you see what happens when someone is rooted in truth and rooted in logic, when they are matched against someone who's rooted in narrative, smears, intimidation, and false accusations like, oh, hate speech, fascism. Ah! You just see who's at the top of that food chain. The truth shall set us free. The narrative, the propaganda in the narrative, it can only survive in the absence of truth. That's why I'm a big fan of truth. That's why I think this video is an excellent example of truth consuming the BS of a narrative. Truth starves the narrative of oxygen because truth deserves all the oxygen in the room. So you get the narrative, you get the propaganda, and you just see how it withers and dies when it's in the presence of truth. And I'll tell you, my freedom-loving friend, I can't wait to see more of this happen in our world. So I appreciate you watching, my friend. Hey, and quick shout out. I want to thank all you beautiful freedom lovers for supporting my merch shop. The Got God shirt has become the #1 bestseller, which not only inspires me, and I'm grateful for, but it inspires me knowing that a lot of people are looking for the highest source of truth out there, which I think comes from our faith in God above. I think the best guidance in the world, it doesn't come from the BBC. It doesn't come from the mainstream media. I don't even think it comes from Elon, though he seems to spit out a lot of truth from time to time. I think the best source of truth comes from God. Nonetheless, if you haven't gotten one yet, and if you'd like to, sure, it helps you find your people out there. I'm so proud to wear this in public. I love the conversations it starts. I love the people that I get to meet and connect with because they see my shirt. They're like-minded, like-hearted. They come up to me. They start an amazing conversation. So if you'd like to get your hands on one, you can just go to my website, awakenwithjp.com. They'll be there waiting for you if you'd like one. But until next time, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, stay free.